On today's episode, Heather and I have the privilege to host the dynamic husband and wife duo known as DoubleBlind. Kat and Rye are enjoying tremendous success with their award-winning LitRPG adventure series Everyone's a Catgirl. Stay tuned and get to know this exciting and amazing duo as they share their writing journey as DoubleBlind. You're listening to the Brewing Fiction Podcast. And welcome back to the Brewing Fiction Podcast. Today's guest is the writing duo DoubleBlind. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having us.
So, for our listeners who are kind of new to the podcast or maybe haven't caught the earlier episodes, DoubleBlind has published with Fiction8 twice now, and I am the editor and the COO of Fiction8 Publishing, and I've had the honor to work with these two, and they're so amazing. I love them so much. So we're so happy that you're here to join us and just tell us. You have so much to tell us, so much. So anyway, let's get started. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you came to write together as DoubleBlind.
I'll actually let her take the floor on this one to start off.
Okay, so writing has always been my passion since I was very little, and I knew pretty much from first grade on, like, this is what I wanted to do for my whole life, and had a lot of family who said, you'll never make money that way, but kept pushing, and in 2012, I wrote my first two books, and Rye actually wrote one book around the same time, and we've known each other for the last 18 years now.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so we were kind of writing partners at that point where we were writing separately and cheering each other on. So I published my first two books on Amazon. He published his book on Amazon. Neither of us really knew the marketing aspect of it, so they flopped. Like, we just didn't get really any sales and didn't have a community around it. And I did conventions, but the sales were okay. And then in 2019, when COVID hit, Ryan and I actually moved in together at that time. And I told him, like, I want to write full time. And he's like, all right, let's go. Just hop in. So I got on Fiverr and started doing my own work for like editing, formatting, ghostwriting, personal commissions, and switched to full time then. And ever since then, I've been doing that on the side. That's been like my full-time job. Okay. And Catgirl started in 2021 when we were still writing separately. And honestly, I saw how big like LitRPG was getting as a genre. And we both love video games. Rye has been huge on creating games since he was a kid and writing all of the back ends for it. So I was like, why are we getting in on this? You can do that. Like, I can write really good romance, and there's like not a lot of romance out there. So we could come up, and the whole premise of the story was kind of a joke after the beginning, where I was like, we're just going to write this guy who gets transported to Catgirl world, and he's just going to be with all these Catgirls because that's what everyone loves in anime, and it'll be fun. Let's go. It was supposed to be like a short story, like 50,000 words maybe, that we worked on together.
Wow.
And as we really went into it, we started really falling in love with these characters and the world and putting a lot more time in it, and more people started coming in.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we decided to start working together because we knew that like it used both of our fortes. But like to get into the writing journey, that's where I've just felt like I've done it forever. So Rye can back up his background with that too. But wow, that's where I started.
Yeah, I echo her sentiments for the most part. Like, just light background on me as well. Writing's always been a passion of mine as well. I've always loved the written word. I'm a creative by heart. Spending a day not creating something is just depressing to me. So it's just baked into my very being. And writing with her at first was a very nervous concept because I'm like, usually when two authors work together, they're usually at each other's throats, or the writing styles don't mesh well together. They don't see eye to eye. It's only a matter of time before they clash or something like that, And we were getting into it a little bit, and then after, I think it was like after the 8th chapter, I'm sitting there and I'm getting attached to the main character and the first girl he ran into, whose name is Kiki, by the way. And I'm like, oh no, I'm catching feelings. I'm actually starting to like these characters now. So this was supposed to be a joke, but here I am. I'm like, can we push back some of the romance a little bit? Maybe give us a little bit more time to bake. And it led to where we are now, basically.
And where you are now is getting ready for volume 4. We will come back to that in just a minute.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I'm like, oh no, I'm going way too far into this.
Yeah. We'll come back to that, definitely. Okay, so you guys on the next part, this is our Fast 5. We just like shoot out little, which ones you would rather.
Have a little bit of fun, right?
Yeah. So you guys, just shout it out. You don't have to take turns or anything.
I was gonna say you can go first. I can go second.
Yeah, I'll lead the pack. Go ahead.
Yep.
Okay. Right. Let's see. Ice cream or gelato?
Ice cream.
Since it's summer.
Ice cream.
Awesome.
Yep.
Would you rather go camping or stay in a hotel?
Hotel.
If you're like me, it's probably neither.
Hotel. Yeah, context is super important with that one, but I'll lean towards hotel.
Yeah.
I'm
not much of a camping person either. Are you, Keith? Do you camp? Do you like to camp out?
No, as you asked the question, I was like, oh boy, I could get into a 10-minute conversation. We were actually visiting some friends last night, and we were having that exact conversation about how we used to have an RV, but my wife calls me a princess, so no.
That's funny.
So I choose hotel.
Yeah. Let's see. When you're writing, plot or character driven?
Character driven.
Character driven.
I already know the answer to that one. Netflix or Hulu?
Hulu right now.
Yeah.
I am not familiar with Hulu here in Canada.
We've swapped back and forth, but Hulu's had better shows lately. So
consistently, they've just had more interesting things. Netflix, to me, feels like it's burning itself some days. So Hulu's been a nice change.
Yeah, nice. It is nice. Yeah, we really like Hulu too. Ebook or a real book?
Real book.
Real book.
Yeah, I knew the answer to that one too. I guess ebooks have their merit, you're reading on a plane.
And I do have a Kindle. Like I bring my Kindle with me to places that are easier, but I love the feel of a book.
Yeah.
There's I'm a textile kind of person.
Yeah.
And an old book, the smell of an old book. Wow.
Yeah, I like cracking it open and be like, oh yeah.
I know. Awesome. Okay.
I wonder how many people do not enjoy that feeling and that smell, right? Like how
I know.
If you read, you
I
must
gotta
enjoy
wonder.
It.
You have to. It's like a prerequisite.
I think so too. I think everybody who I know who loves to read loves the smell, the feel of an old book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially when you like stumble on one somewhere, like a thrift store, and it's this little gem. I love that.
Yeah, I found a first edition of A Prayer for Owen Meany, which is like one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And I was so excited it was in a thrift store.
Oh,
it's just like, yay! And it's an older book. So I love that feeling, like finding books that you love.
It's like finding some gold.
It is.
Exactly. Right. It is. So DoubleBlind, you guys are a writing duo. You're husband and wife. And you guys write, we were already talking about the LitRPG or Isekai adventures. Like before, I know we kind of talked about this earlier, but like at some point, what was it that really cemented the idea of you guys working together as co-authors?
So I'll speak what cemented it for me. She may have a slightly different answer, but for me, what cemented it was the fact that, for one, we wanted to write some romance into it, which I am not super well versed in. Mm-hmm. And secondly, the amount of work I feel is necessary to get a project like this off the ground is just too much for one person to do some days.
Yeah.
So when she brought up the concept, I was just like, I was on the fence, but I thought, you know what, this may actually work out for the best, because if either one of us did this on our own, we're not quite sure if we would make it. In fact, like she was saying earlier, she had her books, I had my book, and neither of us were able to get those off the ground. And we're a lot more wiser, a lot more knowledgeable since then.
Right.
So that's how I felt about it.
Yeah, it's exactly what Rai said with when I was researching the genre and researching potentially posting chapters online before we took it to Amazon. The people that were performing really well were the ones that were posting chapters like 3 times a week. And I knew just from my first books that it was not just that, but you're also trying to run a Patreon and you're running all the social media. And on top of a full-time job, it's just so much work. Yeah. So I asked Rai, like, why don't we just take turns writing chapters, and then we can like take websites that both of us post to, and then I'll deal with all the social media stuff and both of us can handle the Discord. So splitting that up was huge, because there's still some days where like one of us will be really tired and it's like, we still got to get a chapter out. Well, if the other person is feeling okay, like then they can pick that up. So that's really been invaluable to this process.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's great to have a partner, somebody that has your back on those days.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God, how can I get a chapter out today?
It's a huge weight off the shoulders.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I bet it is. So how does a writing partner work? This is a long-term thing with you guys. So how do you decide who writes what? Like, I know, Rai, you said you're not really into writing the romance. So how does your schedule work around having 2 people?
So we typically try to get anywhere between 2 to 3 chapters out a week. Like she said earlier, we just take turns. So we just skip, we just do leapfrog with it.
Yeah.
The only exception to the rule is whenever a spicy scene is coming up, something romantic, then that's all her.
Yeah.
Likewise, whenever the systems get involved, that's all me. So there will be chapters on occasion that may require both of our input, or one of us is the only one capable of writing it, at least, in the way that our audience is used to hearing. So that's one way we go about it. Secondly, the way we determine like keeping I think the biggest part is making sure that the voice stays the same. Usually if 2 or more authors are working on a project, you can tell the difference in their writing styles. This is like, oh yeah, he wrote this, she wrote that, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So what her and I do is whenever she's finished with a chapter, she sends it over to me and vice versa. And we edit it and we make sure that the voice is consistent. That way it always sounds like the same person who wrote it. Feel free to add anything else.
Yeah, it was a lot. When we first started, it took a lot of like getting used to each other's voice and how we wanted to tackle these characters. So with the first and second books, it's all from the main character Matt's perspective. So we were both writing Matt the whole time. And when the side characters come in, we talked about like how their personalities would be, and the editing for each other has really helped. And I do final edits just to make sure that we're using kind of like the same language and same verbiage. But when we got to the third book, we started switching to the other guy's perspective. So sometimes there will be a time where I would say, oh, I wanted to write Matt. And I'll say, okay, I want to write Kailu. And if those chapters come up, then we'll write those in. And we started switching to the girls in like book 6. So we kind of figure out how our timeline goes. And then both of us have favorite characters that we like to write. So if we know that that's coming up, it's like, okay, did you want to take care of this, or should I hop to somewhere else and talk about that instead? So we've gotten a lot more used to each other's writings, just in that voice and like as that character, and where our strengths and opportunities, how corporate, our strengths and weaknesses are.
So it took a while to get your flow, but now that you have it, you feel like you're really, on your way. I mean,
we do. Yeah, 100%. Like it took a while to find the flow at first. I'd say about maybe 30 to 50 chapters before we actually felt like very comfortable with what was going on.
Yeah.
And but that was pretty much it. And things have been very consistent since then.
That's really great.
Nice.
And I'm sure, knowing each other so well really helps that too.
Oh,
Yes.
tremendously. Yeah, because we've already got 18 years of experience
Yeah.
behind one another, you know?
Yeah. That's
And how
awesome.
we
That's so
work and
amazing.
what we're going to say. Yeah,
So,
it's
right,
huge.
tell us about the pen name Double Blind. I know you have posted about that on social media, but just for our listeners who might not be familiar with the duo that is Double Blind, how did you come up with that name?
So the name is an homage to our original characters that we've written for years now, written long before we even came to Catgirls. My original character goes by the name of Ryok, and her original character goes by the name of Lynx. And these two characters both have sight problems. So Ryok wears glasses, and Lynx is blind. So we thought it would be kind of like a cute homage to us, especially
That's
since
so
it's like
awesome.
two people and it's double blind. It's just like, okay,
Yeah,
there's just all kinds of multiple meanings to this author pen name. So that's why we decided to go with that.
I love that. I love that name
That
and the
is cool.
history behind
Yeah,
it. Yeah, that's
that is
really
cool.
sweet. I really like that.
Thank
Um,
you.
so
Yeah.
your Everyone's a Catgirl series has become so popular. And I remember when you guys were just starting out, like not really just starting out, but you didn't have anything in print yet. You guys were on Royal Road. I think you guys were very huge already on there when you started to publish with Fictionate. So tell us about your whole, tell us about this experience from Royal Road to publishing a book, just in a nutshell.
So in a nutshell,
I know that's
actually, you
hard.
know what? I think she could put it into better words than I could, because she picked a lot of the sites that we were going to. It was mostly Royal Road that I suggested, but she found a lot of the other sites.
Am I back in? Just to
Yeah,
make
you're
sure.
You
here.
betcha. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I did a lot of research on websites that we could post the story on, and it came down to, I think we were posting on 8 at one
Wow.
point. But we've condensed it down where we post on Railroad, Scribble Hub, Tapas, DeviantArt, and Reddit on their HFY subreddit, which is like a humans FYF. And I actually wasn't sure how it was going to do on the HFI subreddit because they're very science fiction oriented. So they like the humans going to space and they're being awesome against aliens, and this is not that
Yeah.
at all. But yeah, somebody recommended, hey, try it. Okay. And we posted it up there and it got traction really
Wow.
fast. So we were really excited. So it stayed there. And then we have our Discord server and we have our Patreon. And our Patreon's always been 7 chapters ahead. And I wanted to make sure our Patreon was awesome because doing one in the past, I felt like there was more I could do. So we've always had art from day one.
Awesome.
I always work with as many artists as I possibly can. They still get the chapter updates. We do behind the scenes every single month. And recently we just upped our $20 and up tier, so they actually get acrylic pins. So we started doing a physical thing where we give them out every month, which is really fun. But we hit like 2 million reads on Railroad and Scribble Hub.
Wow.
So our Discord hit like 150 people, and I think our Patreon was at like 50 or 60 subscribers. But with our full-time job, I knew I wouldn't be able to sit down and actually get this into print because I'd have to format it, edit it, like actually get it out there, do testing. So we ran a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter, we needed $5,000 to make it work, and it hit 8,000, which was really, really exciting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
So we had 100 and some odd people pledged to Kickstarter, and that helped get the first book off the ground. That was last year in June, the first one like officially
Just
launched,
about,
because
yeah.
the Kickstarter started in February. Yeah. And so after June, I got the second book out in like September, and then the third book out at the end of November.
Wow.
So it was really,
It's
really,
been really
rapid.
fast.
Right.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And then I needed a break after the third
Yeah.
one.
It's so much work to publish a book. Like, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, this is
And a lot of
that's the
people
part.
don't realize that. Yeah. It's a lot of work. So we're working on the fourth one now, and it's really exciting because the fourth one has 7 pictures in it instead of like the 6 that we had before, and we get to add more art to it, and we have a ton more merch. Like Patreon goals really helped us bring the merch to life. We have bell coins, like metal challenger coins that are the
Yeah.
currency for the world. And that was a Patreon goal, but it turns out people love them. So now we have them in like 6 different colors.
That is so cool.
And talk about something I was sure would not work.
And that
I'm happy to be wrong.
And I love that your merch has been so huge. Like, you have some really amazing artists that you guys work with. Like, I love to get online and see what new art have they posted today. Like,
Thank
it's
you.
all
We love
so
them.
amazing. And you have a lot
Yes.
of merch from like your pins, your collectible coins. So how did your merch get started?
I really got kickstarted with the Kickstarter, and our enamel pins are done by our friend Dawn, who designs them, and then I printed them. I found a company through Alibaba that prints them off for us. The acrylic pins, keychains, and a lot of the stickers come from Mound. She's like our main merchandise artist, and she designs the pins every month. She designed 99% of our stickers and a lot of our prints, like the one that you can see behind there. That's Meow. Our cover artist, GBS Artworks, we've been working with him since book 1, so he's stuck with the project the whole time. And then our illustrator, Comte, does the art in there. But we try and get as much like commercial rights as we can. And then we also have a lot of really amazing readers that are so excited about the series that they actually fund a lot of
That's
the art.
so awesome.
So we have like a whole tarot set in the works right now that is being funded by the readers.
Yes. I love that set.
I love tarot, so I was really excited to see that you guys were doing the whole tarot set. That's so cool. So who's doing, is it one artist doing your whole tarot set, or is it multiple artists? Because then that's a huge undertaking to do a tarot set.
So she goes by the name of White Cat, and hilariously, Cat is the one who found her. And she really loved her art for tarot cards. That's actually a specialty of hers. So she's like, oh, what if we had a whole tarot set of this? But, it's too expensive. And that's when somebody else walked forward and they're like, hey, I want that set. So like, all right.
Yeah, we've been working on it for like a year now. We get a card pretty much every month. And I think we're at 15 going on 16. So we're almost done with the major arcana. But yeah, having a tarot card set has been like a pipe dream since I was a teenager. So having enough characters and somebody who's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, we have a little group that's been helping us fund it. So that's really exciting.
I love literary tarot. One of my favorites is Maggie Seifeder's The Raven Cycle tarot from her Raven Cycle books. So amazing. And she does all of her own art too. So she's like super talented. But yeah, I love literary tarot. So I can't wait to see this. So will you have this available for sale? Like, I know right now you're posting the art, but to actually have like a deck that you can buy.
We're going to. We actually just finished designing the back. Like White Cat designed the back for us, and it's going to be gold foil and super pretty. And yeah, it's wild to me to have all of this merchandise around like one series. I never dreamed that we would do something like this. Yeah.
Just to see you guys
sometimes
grow.
I have to wake up.
It's so amazing.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for you guys because
thank you.
In awe of how prolific you guys are, the following that you guys have, garnered. So for our listeners, people just starting out or, other authors who are struggling to grow an audience, do you have any tips? What are some things you think really helped you guys get off the ground?
So there are definitely a few things that helped me get off the ground. Personally, I'll speak from my half, and then she can tell you about hers. One thing I will say is very, very important is if you think your idea is not original, you're right. It's not. However, nobody has ever told it the way you have. Exactly. And I feel that there's a lot of people who get way too caught up on the whole, I got to reinvent the wheel. I got to come up with this idea nobody's ever heard of. It's going to be so complicated and so convoluted that it's going to blow people's minds or something like that, When, some of the best stories that have ever been told are some of the simplest ones. Sometimes just the simple hero's journey is good enough. And so I always stress that, if you want to tell a story, just go tell it. Don't ask for permission. Don't wait for somebody to give you permission. Just go post it and just see how you feel about it. That's one part about it. And then secondly, stay consistent. I cannot stress how important it is to stay consistent. If it's actually something you want to do, if you're passionate about the story, if you want to make money from it or gain an audience, whatever your goal is with it, it's important that if you want it to get seen, you got to remain consistent, putting out chapters every week or even like once a month. As long as you are hitting that consistent basis, you will garner a following eventually.
Yes, definitely. Kat, do you have anything to add?
That's been my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add definitely the consistency is like one of the top suggestions that we give everybody because it's really important. Another part is a lot of people are afraid that the market is oversaturated, which honestly it is,
Right.
but there's still room for everyone. And I don't know if there's this fear of like everyone's going to read one book and that's it. Like we're never going to read anything ever again. We have plenty of time to pick up other books. Like I've got 400 books in my house. So you can still find your audience and find your following. And it's DoubleBlind has honestly been a really great example because we had nothing when we started this out. No social media presence, no backing. We didn't use either of our names. I didn't use my stories, like nada. So it started at 0 and we worked it from the ground up. So going at it and making sure that I had a social media presence, that I was always active as far as learning what other people were doing. And you don't have to live on social media. I usually go on there, make one post, kind of reply to people for maybe an hour, and then move on from my day. A lot of people get in this like doom scrolling, which is not healthy.
Right.
So you really, you don't want to do that. I also think it's really important to never stop learning as writers because it's how we grow. And I will read anything that people put in my hands and try and draw from it and learn things from it. And I'm always trying new things, which we'll talk about a little bit when we get to like the red shoes. But I think that is so important for growing as a writer and being open to growing as a writer instead of I have hit my peak and this is what I'm going to write forever.
Yeah.
Like
always try something new. Try to challenge yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So what social media platform has been the best for you guys, the most successful?
So overall, Twitter, starting from the beginning, I got more clients from Twitter. I had more author friends that I met and peers. And I just kind of went to find LitRPG groups and see who people were talking to and what they were talking to. And even though it's like a really big genre, what you kind of find that there's a circle of people in the genre that are very, very popular or consistent on social. And so you kind of go talk to them for a little bit. But I finally started a Facebook group for us about a month and a half ago. And we're almost at like 1,000 page like follows, which is really crazy to me. And I've just had ads going on there for like $1 a day, and it's helped boost our sales immensely.
Oh, nice.
So for any authors who are just starting out, I feel like getting an author page going and just getting an ad for like $1 a day for getting follows helps so much. Like I think tripled our sales last month just because I had like $30 in ads.
$30, that's all it
as
takes.
far as monetary, that's all it took to get some more ads or get more readers.
That's really great advice. And even people who are a little cash strapped, I think, could afford $30 a month. That's amazing.
Right? Even if you can only do it for a week, like one of our ads for a week pulled in almost 1,000 likes on it. And so we got a bunch more views. If you can do just a little bit, like advertising, I know a lot of people have this aversion to it, but it's so important to get your work out there.
So I'm hearing so many awesome stories here of how you guys have become, I would say, successful. And I mean, we'll talk later about how you see success, but is this all self-taught, self-learned, or have you guys learned this from others on social media and in the industry, or are you guys just mavericks of LitRPG?
The majority of it is self-taught. We do learn quite a bit just from like acknowledging like what posts get hits and likes and things like that, what's trending, and what the water looks like essentially. So we'll dip our fingers and toes into certain aspects and try those things out. But there have also been a lot of ideas that she's come up with, honestly, that have hit really, really well. That we're like,
Awesome.
why did that hit? And so we just keep pushing it though.
Just
We're just
go
like,
with
hey,
it,
you know
yeah.
what? If it's working, let's just keep doing it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
of course.
I do have a couple of clients that I work with. One is Twisted Key Publishing, and I've been ghostwriting cozy mystery novels with them for a
Fun.
while. And she, her and I will like swap ideas and come up with different things that we can try. So that's been huge. And having like it's a small peer circle, but one where I can ask them and like give ideas and go back and forth has definitely helped too, especially when a lot of this is just us throwing stuff at the wall, like you said, to see what sticks.
Exactly.
And sometimes we're really surprised, but hey, you don't know unless you try it once or twice.
Yeah, and
For sure.
just knowing like what pieces that for me have had most likes or made the most money. And it's usually ones that are very surprising to me. Like I'm always surprised by the things that kind of get popular of mine. What's the most, I guess, odd thing that has gotten popular about Catgirls?
The story itself.
The story itself, yeah, for sure. I mean, if you just read the premise, guy goes to a gym, lifts too many weights, dies trying to impress a girl, and it gets sent to a world filled with catgirls. It sounds like complete nonsense.
But it works.
But it works.
It
And
does.
the fact that Ryan and I started taking it 100% seriously and exploring a lot of harder concepts, like there's a lot of life in that story and a lot of our experiences and emotions that come through. We talk a lot about what it means to like be a dad in that series, and that's drawn a lot of readers into it. We were like, you know what, if we're going to do this, let's do this. So there's economical issues. I find myself sitting here researching lots of history and trying to apply it and make sure that it feels real. So even though we have this whole world that's shaped like a cat's paw, like there will be a character or three that you can relate to, and there will be situations that you can relate to. So it's funny that we still almost every day we're like, how did this happen?
Yeah, we sit here and we're like, okay, 3 years ago we weren't doing any of this, and now I can't imagine a single day without this.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so great. You really live in your Catgirl world, and
For sure.
and that's what every author wants. You want to exist in that world all the time, especially if you could do it full time and not have to do anything else. That's the dream. And you guys are
that's the end goal.
That's the end goal for sure.
Yeah.
So that's where you guys are now. You don't really step outside of that story for any work. Do you do anything on the side?
So as far as like work that I do personally, I do a lot of commissioning work. So I write for a lot of other people. Right. But as far as like works that we're personally getting out that we want to actually publish and show off to the world, that is the only story we're working on. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Just cool. Because of time, like this is still a passion project for both of us. So it's paying for like getting our paperbacks out and like making sure that the store can still run. But for our bills and our full time, like I do the side commissions for Twisted Key, and I have some formatting and editing projects that I work with for clients. So I'm actually starting to format other LitRPG books for people, which is really cool. But right now, like this is it. We have a couple of personal projects that we're both very excited to work on. It's just we don't want it to derail from this, because if we start losing focus, it could stop or start losing momentum, and we don't want that to happen.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Do you guys feel burnout ever? I mean, I wrote for Mithril, I guess, for a year, and just having to get chapters out every week. You're living in this story. You can't go outside of it at all because, like you said, you lose momentum if you do. Do you feel burnout, and how do you beat that burnout to keep going with this same story?
So for me personally, I do feel burnout, and I feel it pretty consistently, actually. What honestly gets me through it and keeps me focused is if I talk about the story with Kat,
Mhm.
and if I just talk to the Discord, our community. I just have a chat with them. Maybe I talk with them for an hour or two,
Yeah.
maybe longer. It depends on the day.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it because it kind of like reignites my enthusiasm to see like how excited people are about certain character arcs or where the plot's going, things like that. I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I can do this. And, then I find my rhythm again. That's usually how it works for me.
Yeah. So that's great. So
That's honestly about the same for me. Yeah, our community keeps me going so much. Like I love them and I'm so appreciative of them. Yes, because we can just go on there and talk about whatever. And we started a stream 2 years ago now. So we had an idea to stream as two of the characters and maybe get some more readers in that way.
on Twitch, right?
So we were like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
on Twitch we were playing
I remember
games
that.
on Raven the Cave, and we just had two little PNG tubers, which are just like pictures that move. Well, our community was like, hey, why don't we get you a 2D VTuber? So I actually have like a character that moves around with me now, and I like puppet her on the stream, and those are so much fun because we get to sit there in character,
So
and that kind of
cool.
helps me reignite my love for it
Yeah.
and just get excited to like work on it again. So that's been a blast, and I can never thank our community enough because it's really, really what keeps me going.
It is, for
And
sure.
from what I've seen too, your community is really showing up for your like when you come to conferences and the cons and all of the different things you've been doing. So tell us about some of those that you've been going to and how that's going with your fans.
So we started our con circuit in, I want to say, was it the end of February or beginning of March? Tucson Book Festival.
So February was, oh, you're right. Beginning of March was Tucson Book
Okay.
Festival.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
And then
that's when we started our con circuit. Then we moved on to, there was Game On Expo, and then there was also Phoenix Fan Fusion. Those are the major cons that we've gone to so far. And each time we had lots of friends come out. One of our friends is actually, he actually lives in Tucson. So when we went to the Tucson Festival of Books, he came out and he visited us, and we had a good time. And, that was basically it. We did a great time there.
but Game On,
Game
we
On,
had 6 people
Game
fly
On
out.
was, yeah, Game On was very
Yeah,
different.
it was amazing.
we had 6 people. Yes, we had 6 people fly out from the East, no less.
Wow.
Yeah. So, their plane tickets couldn't have been very cheap.
Yeah.
And
No.
they flew out here. They got hotels next to the convention. A couple of them dressed up and helped us advertise and pull people in. I was honestly floored at like how many people we consistently had sitting around our booth
That is
throughout the
so
whole weekend.
cool.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, readers came out and cosplayed, and I'm like, this is living the dream right here.
This is it right here.
This is it. This is what I've always wanted.
Yeah, so dress up as one of your characters that came out of your brain. How
Yes.
awesome is that?
Mm-hmm.
It was so cool. And Phoenix Fan Fusion, we had our friend came and dressed up with me again. So we were dressed up all weekend. We're doing another one in November that our same group is coming back out so that they can support us and dress up. And we met a few people at Phoenix Fan Fusion that want to tag along. So it's really cool because our reader group is like a big friends group.
That's
Every time
so
somebody
fun.
joins, it's really welcoming and it's really fun. So they want to actually like come and hang out with us more, which feels really good.
Yeah,
Wow.
I love that.
Is that a big part of the genre? Because it certainly wouldn't be.
No.
No. Wow.
Not
No.
even a little bit. No.
I don't know anyone's Discord who's like, I've joined a lot of them just out of curiosity to see, and we are the only one that I've ever seen get this involved. So I think it's just a product of me and Rye being really involved with our readers and really interested in their feedback, and we love hearing from them and talking about the story. So I feel like we go really above and beyond to make sure our readers know that we appreciate them. And I am constantly adding things on to Patreon or rolls or stickers or whatever I can do just as a thank you.
Wow.
because we couldn't do this without them.
Right.
So that's really
Exactly.
important to me.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that's so great. You've already forged these relationships, and from here it will only grow. It will only get bigger.
That's how we
So I'm
feel
really
too.
excited to see where you guys,
Thank
Thank you so much.
where you guys go from here. So we're going to back up just a little bit. So in, oh gosh, what year was that? 2022, I think. Fiction 8, we ran a contest for like a Twisted Fairy Tales kind of thing to rewrite and upend the fairy tales that you grew up with, no matter what culture you grew up in. We had a great smattering of international authors. And our favorite story, hands down, there was no contest. When we had to pick a first place winner, it was The Red Shoes by DoubleBlind. At the time, I had no idea it was two of you.
So,
So that was very cool to learn that later.
yeah, as far as the Double-Blind pen name, absolutely both of us. But 100% of the credit of writing Red Shoes definitely goes to her. I had no part in that.
So Red Shoes is my baby.
That story is so brilliant. Like all of us, like the whole staff, we were just floored.
Is that your first published story ever, Kat?
No,
Okay.
it was my first like award-winning, oh my God, I'm going to be in a book that's not mine story. And I was so excited because I love fairy tales. That is what I grew up with. Grimm's fairy tales, Hans Christian Andersen.
Me
And
too.
yes, it was honestly, it was such a good combo of things at the time when it hit, because I had just finished reading Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which I've never
cool.
seen and I've never read. And
Amazing.
I was like, what was that? This is crazy. And then we had taken a small vacation, and the Red Shoes movie from like
was it 50s with the ballerina?
The ballerina movie from 1948. That's what I thought. I'm like, no way. So 1948, we saw that. And when we saw that the competition was coming, I was like, okay, I really want to do something with the Red Shoes and the crazy trip that I learned of with Fear and Loathing. So I kind of messed around with it, and I love cyberpunk, but I've never written cyberpunk before.
Wow.
And
you
then
did a great job.
Thank you. While I was writing it, I realized that present tense would feel a lot more immediate, which I've never written in before. And second person.
That whole, it was like a perfect storm for us. The way it was the Red Shoes, but cyberpunk. Kat, tell us about the cyberpunk version of the Red Shoes. Tell us a little blurb about that story.
Sure. So I wrote it so that the Red Shoes, which in the original story made the girls' feet dance nonstop until they actually cut off her feet. It's really dark, and they keep dancing.
The feet never stop.
The feet never stop. So I realized that I needed to do something similar to that. So I thought, well, why not a neural chip that makes it so that you just never stop? Yeah, that just made my brain explode. So
cool.
I wanted the ending to be that the guy who designed the neural chip is actually the AI behind it, and he's the one that's talking to you the whole time. And I thought that'd be a really good way to tie it up in the end. So that's kind of where the second person came from. But yeah, the point of my story was he puts in this neural chip and can take anything that he wants to get him high, any drug, any alcohol, any women, whatever. Like, he just doesn't ever have to sleep or stop or get that crash. And it winds up biting him in the end too, just like the girl and her poor feet.
Exactly. So, and you said how hard it was to switch to present tense, and that's one of the things I've worked on over the last year, I guess, is writing in present tense. And it is hard when you have never done it consistently. To consistently write in present tense, it's very hard to do, but I really love it. It's a great challenge. But writing in second person, that was another thing that really, really wowed us. What was that like, writing in second person? It's hard to do well, and you
It
did it
is.
amazingly well, Kat.
Thank you. I actually have never really been a fan of second person, which made me want to try it. So I thought that it would be way more interesting and way a way to bring in your reader, because when you read you start
Mhm.
internalizing it. It doesn't matter who
You
the narrator
do.
is talking to.
Yeah, it's
So
like
it was
Fight
a way
Club.
to drag my reader
Yeah.
along. And I love Chuck Palahniuk in Fight Club.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
yes,
Me
so
too.
he's a
Yeah.
great writer. I thought that that would be better than third person or first person. So to have the AI talking to you and walking you through this, and I just wanted the whole thing to feel like you read it really fast and you're not really sure what happened, but you're pretty sure you got a contact high kind of sensation.
Yeah, it's a very there's a very frenetic pace to that story that I don't think I've ever experienced before.
You.
But yeah, I mean, it's really great, and I don't know, I guess in some ways maybe it reminds me of that feeling you get when you read Fight Club, not necessarily watch it, although
Right.
that's a whole different feeling too.
Mhm.
Because the way he just jumps, but you're always in the moment. It is crazy
Right.
how the story jumps from here to there, but you're always in the moment with him because a lot of it is you. And then he switches and then he comes back to you. So just such an amazing story. One of
Thank
our
you.
favorites. So if you are listening, head to the fictionate.me website, and we still have links up for our fairy tale anthology that featured Double Blind, first story in the book, first place winner. It was just amazing. So
Thank you.
definitely check that out. And congrats again on that story, Kat, because it was just incredible. One of my
I
favorite
appreciate that
stories,
a lot. We actually, when we
definitely.
took on this pen name too, it was, I really appreciate anonymity when it comes to storytelling, because I feel like the first thing that should be on your mind is the story good? Is the book good? Like, what do you think of it? And less, I didn't want it to be so much about me. Like, I have writing in the past and I have my own stuff that I do, but that doesn't, I don't want that to put a bias on it. So
Yeah.
since we were still starting Double Blind, I decided why not just use this pen name and put that out there. No one knows who I am.
Mm.
Now I'll really know what people feel about my
And that's
story.
cool too, because you can write anonymously pretty much,
Yes,
and you
it's
can really be maybe more honest in your writing. Do you think you feel like you can just get whatever out there and not have to worry about, oh my God, my mom is going to read
it helps tremendously, honestly. Like for me, like personally speaking, it helps tremendously because I don't have to worry about who somebody thinks I am or their
Mm.
bias with me or any preconceived notions they've had with me in the past. It's just like, oh, whoever that guy is with the sexy anime man picture. It's just, oh yeah, he just writes good
this.
stuff. So it was very, very liberating, to be able to just put anything I
Yeah,
want
I
out of there
bet.
and just be like, cool. They have no idea. They have no idea it's me.
Yeah, the LitRPG genre is very male dominated too. So I didn't want any, like you said, preconceived notions going into it of people checking it out. It's just like, it's just some anime dude writing stories. And that was great. It worked out great.
Yeah, so Kat, it's almost like the female writers in sci-fi who back in the day, and even now I even do it, either use a male name or they use their
Initials.
initials,
Mm.
so you
Hmm.
don't know if you're, what gender you are.
Yes.
Um, so do you feel like that helped you in this male-dominated world to not have, I'm Kat, here's my story about cat girls?
Yep, exactly. It really does, especially online. Like when we're in person, it's awesome when we go to cons and get to meet people face to face. It's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
And it's catering to a different audience at that point. But when it's online, then it's way easier for people to not know like my real name, my real face, and just be able to write what I think
Yeah, because they
fits.
can't assume anything. Like it's very difficult to pick up on tone or body language or any of those kinds of aspects of communication that you would normally have.
Yeah.
The most amazing part to all of this, honestly, was we finally told our Discord and our community who we were about 4 months ago, like after we started doing the cons, because we realized if people were going to come out and see us, well, okay, we're a husband and wife team.
It's kind of hard to keep up that illusion.
We were, yes,
Yeah.
and we were terrified about how people were going to take it, and everyone was so excited, which meant the world to us. But no one suspected anything. No one thought this was written by two people. This has been like designed by two people, which was a huge compliment for both of us because we were able to pull off 600,000 words and no one thought.
Nobody
Wow.
batted an
It was two
eye.
people.
Nobody thought, oh
Yeah.
yeah, this feels like it's written by 2 or 3 or 4 people or something like that. Nope, no one was ever the wiser.
No.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been your editor, and so that was awesome for you guys to be able to kind of keep that under wraps as long as you did, because
Mhm.
I guess that helped you in the beginning while you were still trying to feel your way in this whole genre, the whole market.
Yeah.
It is really different,
It's tough.
and LitRPG is pretty new to a lot of people.
Mhm.
So just in case people who don't know, what is LitRPG?
So basically, it's typically fantasy or sci-fi based worlds in which video game mechanics are ingrained into the world. So for anybody who's familiar with RPGs, like I'll just say, Mass Effect, the Elder Scrolls, any kind of RPG, where you've got like health,
Yeah.
mana, strength, whatever.
Mhm.
It's taking those aspects and trying to weave them into the world in a way that makes sense. So anytime they get stronger, they have to get levels, and that's how they make their place in the world.
Yeah, it stands for literary role-playing game.
Right.
So it's the combination of literature and then RPGs. And generally, you find it in two forms. Either the whole world operates under these rules, or it's people who are playing a game and they're going into the game and getting the game aspects.
Right. So it's basically, I mean, not to, make it smaller, but it is like a portal fantasy type of story. If somebody's not, because I didn't think I would like lit RPG, and working at Fiction Aid, I was trying to read all the different genres we had, and lit RPG was really taking off at one point. And so I started to read a few. I'm like, wow, this is really cool because I love video games too, and I love to read, and it's a really nice mesh of
Mhm.
of two genres, and really more than that, honestly. So speaking of like lit RPG, who were some of your favorite authors? Who were some of your biggest influences on your writing?
So for me, personally speaking, Brandon Sanderson is he is my top influence. He's my major inspiration. I got into reading his books about a couple of years ago, and I just never looked back. I follow his YouTube channel. I watch his podcasts. I think the guy is just absolutely lovable. I love how much enthusiasm he puts into his work and how he's like, I can't stop writing. It's just an addiction to me. I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
that's the guy. That's the guy I want to be, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's a major influence for me. And then I also do like Scott Lynch. Just off the top of my head, I really like how he integrates the Gentleman Bastards into his story and their trials and tribulations through the city. So those are major inspirations for me.
So one thing we tell people with this is that our story reads more like an epic fantasy than it does really a traditional lit RPG. We've read some lit RPG and we still lean more towards fantasy, epic fantasy. And like I said too, I will read anything. So my biggest influences are definitely Brandon Sanderson, Jacqueline Carey, who writes a lot, the Kushil series, Kushil's Dark, Kushil's Legacy, is where I learned how to write a lot of spicy stuff. And then I started reading the Dresden Files, and Jim Butcher is a huge inspiration for my cozy mystery series because I write a witch detective in the 50s, so that's a blast.
Oh, I love that.
It's a lot of fun. I love Joe Abercrombie. And then, like I said, Chuck Palahniuk is a huge inspiration to me to always try new narratives and new narrative styles, because every book that he has is just, it's a ride, like how he writes things. And I try and highlight the whole thing and memorize it.
I know. He's so quotable. Oh my God.
Yes, every book.
Yeah, and I tell my husband that I'm like, I don't know if I'm highlighting Chuck or reading Chuck right now,
Right?
It's so good. Just so brilliant. Um, what about, do you have any games? Like, I love games. Like Genshin Impact is one of my favorites. Honkai Impact. I love the stories in Hoyoverse games. What are some, do you have any video games that have really maybe influenced Catgirl?
So for me, you're looking at one of them behind me. That one helps me with dealing with characters' mental states. Omori's a really big one.
And that's Amori.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say.
Omori,
For
yeah, for the
listeners.
listeners. So Omori's a really big one for me. I also draw a lot of inspiration from bigger epics like Dragon Age Origins, Mass Effect Trilogy. Let's see, and I take a lot of inspiration from Ragnarok Online and Phantasy Star Online, especially when it comes to like game mechanics and such like that are involved in the world and make them feel real and integral to how everything works.
Yeah. Kat, what about you?
So for mine, I actually have a whole sleeve dedicated to Nier and Nier Automata, which is
Oh
my two
yeah,
favorite games,
Nier.
like in the whole world.
So
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes,
Gorgeous
they
game. Gorgeous.
changed my life when it came to storytelling in a video game medium. I had no idea that anyone could take it that far. So definitely that director is my top two. Some of the older Final Fantasies, but as far as storytelling goes, definitely like Nier and Shadow of the Colossus, which is an older one. But that game always impressed me because there's maybe 20 lines of dialogue, but the story is so strong that it just carries you through the whole thing.
Yeah, and a lot of people think I'm kind of strange when I mention, if you have writer's block and you like to play video games, go play a video game. Go play your favorite game.
Not strange at all.
Yeah, get on Steam. Find those old games that you loved when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And that can even inspire you.
Oh, that's great advice.
I mean, 'cause I've always loved video games.
I've been playing video games since I was a little kid, since I was like old enough to have a controller in my hand. So
yeah,
and they were a huge part of like inspiring my writing. I would just go write video games, just go back and forth between them. And I also drew a lot of inspiration for like some of the monsters in our story from things like Silent Hill and Resident Evil and
That's great advice.
that kind of terrible.
His monster designs are nightmare fuel.
I get comments from.
I cannot believe how scary.
I get comments from the community every once in a while, like, "Oh, cool! I need to bleach my brain today because Rye came up with a new monster design that's going to haunt my nightmares." And I'm like, "Cool! That's very flattering. I'm glad my work could do that to you."
And that is that's a very good compliment too.
It is.
If somebody says, you totally gave me a nightmare.
It feels really good.
That's a huge
It feels really
compliment.
good in the weirdest way I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. It kept you up at night. Very nice.
Yeah. So, Kat, you said you ghostwrite the cozy mysteries, right? Do you write? Is there another genre that you like to write?
Science fiction fantasy, like Drive, right? Right?
We don't talk about that here.
Oh, okay. We won't talk about that here. All right. What other genres do you write, Ryan?
Okay, so I personally, I just love anything science fiction or fantasy related. I usually lean more into science fiction. I lean more a little bit into that, but I like adding fantasy elements to it too, to kind of like make things seem like not so kosher, not so ingrained, or if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, and Drive was a huge project of mine, still is. It's been my baby since I was like in my late teens. So one day I'll get it off the ground.
Wow. So that would be, and that sounds like a good project. Like, you already have such a huge following. So now later when you're ready to kind of have your own publications, your books, or whatever you want to do separately, you'll have this sort of to springboard, your
Yeah, Kat and
other
I.
careers, or will it be completely different? Will you use another pen name?
So we've actually talked about this a little bit, and we decided to continue writing all of our work under this pen name. Kind of like, here's a touch of red for Rye, and here's a touch of purple for Kat. And we talked about how we feel that this community is just so warm and welcoming and amazing that we could write anything and they will follow us. They're not here. They're not here
That's
for the
so
Catgirls. I
great.
mean, they are, but they're here for us. They're here for our writing. They're here
Yeah.
for the quality that comes through. So they're like, yeah, we'll follow you into anything else you write after this.
Which means
Oh,
a
that's so
ton,
great.
because we can actually like work on our really dear personalized projects that we've had forever.
Yeah.
So at some point, yeah, we've even talked about writing some of them together, since we've been doing it for so long now.
May as well.
We should be able to. Yeah.
Well, I think, with the success you've had, I think it'd be a shame to step away from that with personal writing that you do. I think the success
We
will.
feel the same way.
Yeah.
Agreed. Because Catgirls is a personal project anyway. This was supposed to just be kind of for fun for both of us. So the fact that it's working out is fantastic. And for it to be, like you said, a springboard for professional success for other ideas, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So you have a great basis now,
Yeah.
a wonderful audience, and you're so inspirational to so many of us.
Thank you.
Just seeing you are, and to see what you're just so humble about everything. And I love that about you guys too. You're so easy to talk to, and so I know that's another reason why your community loves you as well. You're very accessible, and that makes a huge difference too.
Yeah. You guys come across as very infectious too. Like, as I said before we started online here, is I'm not familiar with the genre, but after chatting with you guys and just hearing about your passion and just a tidbit of some of the stories, it is very inviting, and it actually has drawn me into thinking, I got to give it a try. And totally,
Thank you.
totally outside of my.
Thank you so much.
Comfort. Yeah. Sure.
And I think I think a lot of our readers will feel the same way Keith does,
I hope so.
to want to just jump into this world because of the energy you guys have, and your stories are full of that same energy. And so that's really cool. And you've had so much really great advice for everyone too, new and veteran writers alike, so to kind of wrap up, what is next on tap for DoubleBlind? I know we kind of mentioned Catgirl Volume 4.
Yes.
In the works.
Yeah, so Volume 4, the release date on Amazon is August 2nd, and I'm thinking that's what it's going to be. We're waiting on our illustrator to finish up all of the pictures.
Wow,
and then
cool.
The audiobook for Volume 2 is coming, and
Awesome.
We're very excited for that. Yes, Merlo and Rachel Music do our audiobook, and I am so honored because they did my audiobooks like 15 years ago when I first started doing this, and it didn't go anywhere, but I loved working with them, so they stuck around.
Nice. Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. So we actually still work with them, and they do a wonderful job. So they're doing the second one. And then we also talked about starting a series that's it's called System Apocalypse. So it's kind of like LitRPG, but it all of a sudden infects the world that has never had these elements before. And the story that I had for Mithril, Valkyrie, would actually lend itself really well to that, because it's like a post-apocalyptic science fiction where the world is ending, but it starts following the events of Ragnarok. So we were like, why don't we add in like LitRPG elements, since we're already in this genre anyway, and see where it goes. So I'm really excited to get that started with Rye too.
Wow.
Busy.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. Yeah, and very busy.
Yes, busy.
So do you still have some cons coming up on your schedule? For Catgirls, how does that look?
We do. We actually have UwuCon coming out in November. What is the date on that, honey?
It's November 1st through 3rd, so it's right after Halloween. And then we're also going to be in Tucson on September 21st just for a signing at Otaku Nation. And I'm trying to get more events set up. We like to go to Barnes & Noble. That's a new thing for us this year too, and go out and meet some readers that way.
Yeah.
So we've been doing the Barnes & Noble near us, and then we were trying to get to the one in Tempe. But we're hoping next year to keep Tucson Book Festival and then Phoenix Fan Fusion on lock for like the 2 big cons that we do while we work on this. That seems to be like where we meet the most people, and it works out best. It's local enough.
Yeah, that's cool. You have so much right there in your state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very
and
fortunate.
You can start going. Yeah, that's really awesome. So anyone listening, if you are in Arizona and you want to start following these guys and head out to the places they're going to be, you should check them out. So give them a follow on social media. Make sure and please go look at their art. Oh my goodness.
Please. And
amazing.
Our Discord server. So if you come to Discord and you look for a server and you just look for DoubleBlind, you'll find our server. Like everyone's a Catgirl, and we post art in there, and our artists are in there and they post their own art. We have a whole writing channel where we help other writers and we like give each other feedback. So by all means, anyone is welcome. We'd love to have you, even if you've never read the story. You just come hang out with our community.
That's fabulous. I think we'll, with your permission, we'll put some links for your Discord and maybe some other links. I'll get that from between Heather and I. We'll get that from you and get it on the website for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah. And then I just had another short story that was published in Progenitor, which is a small literary publication, and they're going to submit it to Pushcart, which I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
I know, and I found out what it was, and I freaked out.
Her reaction was really great. She's like, "Oh, what's Pushcart?"
And then I Googled it, and I'm like, "Wow!"
Please share what that is.
So Pushcart is a competition, a yearly competition where small literary presses can submit 6 pieces in a year, and that's it. So you can't submit them on your own. Like a literary press actually has to submit it for you. So I got the letter on my story, and he said that he adored it and he's going to submit it there in fall. And I was like,
"Wow, congratulations. Okay, wow.
This is exciting. Thank you." So, and it was another science fiction story. So maybe I should really be writing sci-fi.
That is so awesome.
You're clearly good at this.
Yeah.
It sounds like it. Wow. Well, I can't wait for this to come out. I can't wait for that to come out.
I posted, it's a short story. It's only like 5,000 words. So I posted it up, and I can send you the link. And then I'm going to jump into NYC Midnight's short story competition on July 12th. So they give you like 2 days to write 500 words.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that goes. Yeah. So we have a lot of really exciting things coming up.
It sounds like it. It does.
Very much.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like you'll have a very busy summer. Very exciting stuff. So, okay. Well, thanks so much for coming. We had so much to talk about, and I could talk to you guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
And still have more to talk about. I mean, so much to say.
Oh no, you know what? It's actually my pleasure. I was just going to say, I'd love to have you back as you guys keep going with, with the future endeavors you have going. But as busy as you are to take the time to sit with us.
Of course. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we'd love to come back. So let's, a few months, circle back around and see where we're all at.
Of course.
Yeah.
We'll do that. We'll definitely do that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Of course. And thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. In the upcoming episode of the Brewing Fiction Podcast, I'll be hosting fantasy, sci-fi, and horror writer Brett Gosling. Brett, an expatriate Newfoundlander and a longtime friend, recently announced the acceptance and impending publication of his short story, Just Another Friday Night. This story will appear in the anthology The Underdog's Rise, Volume 2, scheduled for release this September. Join us next time as Brett shares his unique creative journey, which, despite self-professing to do everything the hard way, has led to his publication and the anticipated release of his first novel in 2025. Stop by the podcast homepage for links to today's guest and to see what else is brewing on the Brewing Fiction podcast. You can find the links in the description. And don't forget to click the subscribe button to be notified whenever a new episode is released.